All right, we are live with a not so instant reaction podcast here. We're recording at halftime of the Sunday night football game. Lots of stuff going on, playoff implications galore. Patriots get a win today in their final home game on New Year's Day against the Miami Dolphins, 23-21. They just barely held on at the end. And look, they're alive. They're still alive. And so it's like as much as we can complain about it, as much as we can say we hate the way things are going right now, every single game this season has mattered. And I think playing, having something to play for in week 18 is a good thing.
Yeah. Did you see the report on Jabril Peppers in the locker room after the game?
No.
Apparently, he was running around the locker room yelling, "We're still alive! We're still alive!"
I love it. I love it.
I love him, man. He was cracking skulls today too, which I'm not surprised he gets flagged as much as he does for the way he flies around and hits people. But he looked like he was going to be out after the fumble. He looked
I can't
injured
believe that,
on
dude.
that play, and then he came back and cracked Teddy Bridgewater a couple plays later, just laid into him.
I love watching Peppers so much, man. I love watching him so much. And the thing, so the fumble, I didn't realize until afterwards because I'm at the game. They do a horrible job showing replays of the game. I didn't see it until afterwards, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like that was
It's so bad.
In what universe is that considered not now? Gene Steratore is on Twitter and posts that they could have reviewed it, and I'm like, bro, like, what are you talking about? They could have reviewed it by rule.
So
they
could have, because what they can review is if like the ball I think was out earlier than the ref saw or some weird thing like that is I think how it went. So like usually that's something that isn't reviewable, and what they can't do is review when like forward progress was called. Like, they can't say, oh, that actually wasn't forward progress, but I think they can review to see if the ball was out earlier than the refs thought it was or something along those lines.
Yeah, but if they say it's forward progress, they say it's forward progress. What I don't understand is that, and I guess what the argument that he was making is that the hit happened and they fumbled like as the hit happened, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It has to do with the timing of the ball coming out and not whether or not his forward progress was stopped, because you can't double check. Yeah. Which I think is one of the reasons Bill was so mad, because when they showed it, the I have on it, looking at it, I think they told Bill you can't challenge it, and then he came back and said, actually you could have, and that's why he was losing his mind, because he had the challenge flag out, like he wanted to, and thankfully that didn't end up mattering at all, because Pats got the ball and scored on that drive. But like, if from what happened with Ramondre Stevenson,
yes,
like it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of those is a fumble and one of them isn't.
Right. That's the stuff for me where it's like Ramondre's getting driven back 4 yards. And I know he's still fighting, but like, you don't blow the whistle on that, but then you blow it just leaves such a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah. If one of those isn't, if Ramondre is not forward progress, and there's no shot the other one is, and I think we all look at those plays and see one of these is kind of bang bang and 50-50, and the other one is an obvious fumble. So
exactly.
Yeah. Which I'm glad that did not come back to haunt the team. They forced as many turnovers as I think we all thought they could anyway, with that quarterback situation in Miami.
Right.
And I will say this about the Patriots defense. I know this team gets a lot of crap in general right now for the issues that it has had and its inability to beat good teams. But there's a lot of teams in the NFL that can't beat backup quarterbacks, that cannot do it consistently. This team has really done it all year long. And that's kind of the hallmark of the Bill Belichick thing. Like, the Patriots may not play well, play with the best teams, but if you come out and play a bad game, they're going to beat you. And most of the time, they've done that this year still. And look at the secondary they had today. Look at the secondary they had against those weapons, and they stifled that offense basically all game long. That is an incredible thing. And I've seen some people talking about like whether or not Bill should be on the hot seat this offseason. I'm sorry, but look at the way the defense played today, and look at the people they had out there. And that's a credit to him. That's a credit to his son on the defensive staff. It's a credit to Gerard Mayo, who I think we should all be worried about potentially leaving.
Correct. Yes. Right. Well, that's and like secondary is one injury away from putting cheerleaders out there. I'll tell you who they weren't putting out there was Sean Wade. Sean Wade
Why
sucks.
is he there?
He just stinks. He's not good, and I think that they know that, and they just said, "All right, we're done. We're done here. It's fine. You played last week. You stink. We know it. That we know that you stink. Like you're done. See you later. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
out.
that's
I mean, he's
yeah.
getting. You're talking about Jalen Mills doesn't play. Marcus Jones doesn't play. Jack Jones doesn't play. You're down 3 of your top 4 cornerbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and Sean Wayne still can't get on the field. 2 guys that got signed to the practice squad from the street, just 2 street free agents get playing time over him.
Quandre Mosley is a guy too who's I think he's an undrafted free agent. This is already his 4th team, I believe. It's either his 3rd or his 4th team.
Yeah,
And I was looking him up before the game because I didn't know anything about him. Did you know he's like 6'2" and ran a 4.340?
he's like a physical freak. Yeah,
Yeah, which tells me if he's that much of a physical freak and he can't stick with a team, was not talked about in the draft, his technique must be horrible. So
yes.
hopefully, I intrigued that they have him out there. Maybe they can coach him up. But yeah, I
Maybe
was
he can
all
be a
in on the
special teams
Sean
guy.
Wade. What was that?
Maybe he can be a special teams guy.
I could see that. But yeah, I think this all but ends the Sean Wade
Right.
experiment. The only thing I could possibly say on that is that he is not the best athlete, and they may view Wade as like a technical guy, and they wanted the fast guys out there just because of the speed that Miami brings. But still, that's an argument that doesn't come close to convincing me, and I'm the one making it. So
They had Miles Bryant out there. So I mean,
and Miles Bryant, who I don't know if he played a good game, but he didn't play a bad one.
well, I'll tell you what, he gave up. He got beat to the outside on the Tyreek Hill touchdown. I mean, like it's Tyreek Hill. Like what are you gonna do? He had a really nice play on the sideline where he pushed the guy out of bounds. And I don't know who the receiver was for Miami, but it wasn't one of the 2 big guys. I'm not sure who it was, but either way, it doesn't matter. But it's one of those things where I look at it and just think like, yeah, he was good. He was fine. He was fine. I wasn't like pissed off that he was there. It sucks because I wanted to see Marcus Jones against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. What blows my mind, and I look, I know Mike McDaniel's a good coach and offense and blah, 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 and whatever, but like, how the hell does Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle end the game with 5 receptions? Or no, 7 receptions? How is that even possible? Like, I just, that's insanity to me. I would have been throwing at them on every single play. And I know they're probably getting double teamed and they're getting back. They were running plays without the 2 of them on the field. I'm like, what are you doing?
That didn't make any sense to me. And it's like, especially against the Patriots,
right?
And with the Patriots offense, it looked like go screen heavy. Just get it outside the numbers as fast as possible. Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback, and Uche and Barmore and Judon out there, and just get it to him in space. I will say this: I really liked the coaching hire that Miami brought in.
Yeah.
I liked Mike McDaniel, and I didn't dislike Brian Flores or anything, but when you go through, like, he ran through coaches there. There was like a new coach every year on offense. He couldn't decide the quarterback position. That team was super streaky. So I got the reasoning that you're going to move on to somebody else. Although obviously there's plenty of other questions about why they moved on there, but I think there are some legit on-field things. But Miami team doesn't really look that much better than last year, other than the addition of Hill. But they look like that same team with one other player. Like there's nothing. They play differently, but I'm not convinced the Dolphins are all that good. Who have they beaten? Their best wins came in like weeks 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 or whatever.
Yeah, was it week 3? They were showering. I think Patrick Pass tweeted something out about like they'll always have week 3 where they're giving him the Gatorade bath.
Like they shredded bad defenses. Cool. Now do it against the good ones. And the defense is really, really bad. That's Josh Boyer down there as the defensive coordinator, the old New England defensive backs coach, who has, I don't think, done a very good job.
Yeah. He didn't do a great job here when he was here as the D-backs coach. But
well, he did well enough to to get hired there.
That's true. That's true. So
only so much he can do when they're drafting those guys in the 2nd round.
That's very true. That's very true. Today was also the championship game for fantasy football owners, and Justin Jefferson, put up a big 2, which was great. That was great. So one of my teams had Jefferson on it, which was awesome. That team's going to lose. And I mean, it's what's funny is that, and it happens every year, but it's like this is the stuff where like one of my teams is playing for 3rd place. Guess who wasn't in my starting lineup? Mike Evans, because why would he be? He's been terrible all year long. He has 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. Okay, great. That's awesome. Tom Brady, nobody. I mean, I guess you probably started Tom Brady, I guess, but like he's stunk. Oh, dark blue gold played Evans. Let's go. That's a big one.
Big moves.
That's a wild move. I played Garrett Wilson over over him. Garrett Wilson 3 points.
I
But
did not. Yeah. I didn't play anybody. I'm out of fantasy now.
I was in 2 championships and 1 third place game. So luckily, my third place game, I had Devontae Adams. That helped me out. Who was just an absolute freak, just an absolute freak.
Fastest kid
And
alive.
one of them I'm going to lose, and one of them I'm going to win. So
Yeah.
you take the good with the bad, but it is funny to see those guys, and you're like, man, like this guy's been performing all year long. Justin Jefferson has been averaging like 120 yards receiving every game, and he gets 1 catch for 15 yards, and you're like, what are you doing, Minnesota? You knew that this was coming from them at some point. I mean, they've gotten blown out in a few games, but you knew that this at some point was coming. Like they have 11 one-score victories. Like it just at some point that bubble was going to burst, and it burst big time today against the Packers. They got absolutely lambasted by the Packers.
So now the
And
Packers have that's a very interesting NFC
very
7
well.
seed
Oh
situation because I think it's Green Bay's in with a win, Detroit's in with a win and a Seattle loss, Seattle's in with a win and a Green Bay loss. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm curious to see how that shakes out, and depending on which one of those teams and who ends up being the 2 seed there, I think you could end up with a very interesting situation. Especially if it's like a Seattle San Fran game, you get the in-division one there. You could get Vikings Packers again. I think the Vikings are still alive for the 2 seed. And weird stuff going on in the NFC.
It's wild.
I would not count out the 7 seed out of whatever matchup ends up coming out of that.
No, well, and you look at Philly too, and Philly, who now, when's Jalen Hurts going to come back? Is he going to come back next week? Is he going to, like no one really knows.
And we're very close to a situation right now. If the Eagles lose next week and the Cowboys win, then it's Philly going to Tampa in the first round of the playoffs, which is what happened last year.
Right.
And I mean, obviously Tampa's not very good this year, but also they won that last year. And
correct.
If depending on what Jalen Hurts we get, and it could be a team kind of not in the best of spirits after assuming they were going to have the 1 seed in the bye locked up and kind of coming down to earth like this. And I put it this way, I would never want to play a road game at a Tom Brady led team ever in the playoffs.
No, absolutely not. So you would think now, if I'm the Eagles, I believe they're playing the Giants next week. Jalen Hurts has to play next week. He has to play next week because you get the bye week the next week if you win. And if you don't win, you might end up as the 5 seed, and you can't have that.
And the Giants have nothing to play for. I don't think. Well, they might have seeding, or are they locked into a seed?
They must be locked into the 6. They have to be locked into the 6 because they're not going to get the 5. That's for sure.
My only question is, can they fall to the 7?
I think it's possible. I think it's
let me.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
around a little bit here in the. No, because they have the tie. They have that one tie.
They already have 9 wins, right? Yeah, so there's no shot. There's no shot.
Locked in, so Philly should win that anyway. But
yeah, because I don't think
they would love to win that. I'm sure they would love to knock Philly out.
Oh yeah, because even if the Packers get 9 wins, they'll have 8 losses, whereas the Giants would only have 7. So they guaranteed the 6 seed. So it's interesting. I mean, it is going to be interesting to see what happens over there. But all right, let's save that. And let's just quickly on this game, because there are more stuff in this game. One of the things that I think to look out for is Ramondre Stevenson. And I don't know what is going on. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's just exhausted from overuse. I don't know. But consistently now over the last weeks, he's missing blocking assignments on blitzes consistently. He's had a few good runs, but like for the most part, there's really been nothing there. The passing game, he hasn't looked great in the passing game. He's dropped some passes. Like I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on, but he was the best player in the offense, and he has not been that the last 2 weeks. And then obviously you add in the fumble at the end of last week, and it's like, man, he's been
That's tough.
killing them lately.
And I think that part of some, like, we saw blocking issues from him today. I think
Yeah,
part of that is that's just what Miami does. Their whole thing on defense, the only thing they really do is they're going to bring a whole bunch of different blitzes at you and try
right.
to get you to have miscommunications. And that's something the Patriots have struggled with as a whole this year. That's not just a Ramondre Stevenson thing. So he had one that he really blew badly in there. And I think right after that is when I saw you tweet about him. um,
Yeah,
and that was rough. He had some nice plays. I thought he bounced back well after that. I thought he looked rough in the first half, and in the second half, he made a couple nice plays on the ground where he
yeah,
bounced back. And I think this is a position. I mean, we'll see what the position looks like next year, but even for next week, getting Pierre Strong a little bit more involved might help. Damian Harris being there and back will help. We'll see if they use Kevin Harris at all. They did have Pierre Strong kind of in the Marcus Jones role in the offense with the orbit motions, where they're just having him
yeah.
run around before the snap and do stuff. And maybe they're just hoping the defense sees somebody with the number 5 on his back and they think it's Marcus Jones out there. But Pierre Strong's an athlete. So even if he isn't fully involved with that this week, maybe he is next week. Maybe they get him the ball in space. And if we want to look forward to next year, whoever is coaching this New England offense, I think that's absolutely within Pierre Strong's skill set, something they should try to use.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, get him involved a little bit more. I will say, and I kind of noticed it last week. He reminds me a lot of Darren McFadden. Just the way he runs the ball, he looks like McFadden when he has the ball in his hands. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
runs a little straight up. He's got that stocky, kind of tallish build. Although stocky and tallish, I guess, are different. But nevertheless, he
I
has
get
that
what
like
you mean.
kind of that tallish, like athletic build. Reminds me a lot of Darren McFadden when he's running. But nevertheless,
I like
um,
that comparison. That's not what I heard before, but I get it. I
yeah,
definitely see it.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
but I mean, I thought I'm concerned. It's just something to look out for. It's just something to look out
yeah,
for. They've used Ramondre a ton this year, and so maybe some of it is that I'm not sure, but
yeah. If we want to talk about guys on offense and their impact on the game, Tyquan Thornton, baby, is he
that's
their
right.
best offensive player today? He's
And
up there.
just he certainly might have been. He certainly might have been, and that's where the speed matters so much. And I said to watching the game, I said to my dad, I'm like, if they're gonna play press man without anyone over the top, you just run Tyquan Thornton deep. Just run him deep.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that one play where Mac just threw it as far as he could, and Thornton stopped. And you're like, bro, like, what are you doing? Just run. Just
Yeah.
run. Stop. Like, don't stop
But
stopping.
to be fair on that one, and I will have to get the all 22. I think there's a chance that was just a throwaway, and
It
he's
might have
just
been.
pulling up because that was I think I was on a second down before the end of the half. We ended up running it on the next play, and that might have been one of those where he was double covered and wasn't open, and Mac was like, "I'm just going to get it close enough to him that we call this, and we
Right.
can run it and go into the half."
Right. Yeah, no, you
Um,
might not be wrong about that. So I just think, and even the one he made that nice jumping catch where he was wide open in the middle of the field, but he stopped. And I'm like, why not still running? And I think Mac not missed him,
yeah,
but like didn't put it on him partly because he had stopped, right? And if he was still running or even jogging, he gets that ball, he might have scored with the speed that he has. So
yeah,
and again, that's one of those things that like that's nitpicking because like he has that much speed that I was happy to see that. I think again you saw his ability to get open in the red zone again. Yeah, obviously had his touchdown and had the other touchdown where he just couldn't get that second foot down, but he made a really nice catch. Mac kind of put the ball in the only spot he could get it to. Kind of had to throw it behind where the defender was. Taekwon made a really nice play on it and just couldn't get the second foot down and missed it by
yeah,
like an inch. And it's just
yeah.
like sometimes those things happen, but he looked really good today.
Yep. I do another just a detail thing on Tyquan Thornton. I want to mention that I noticed in there too, because we've been talking about spacing and the details with the receivers and the issues there. There was a play early in the third quarter there where they threw it to Henry for a first down, just like an out route, and he got 10 yards. Um, and right in the middle of the field. And Tyquan Thornton's the outside receiver on that side. And he makes sure when he releases that he goes outside the corner because he
Right.
has to, because that's what creates the space inside for Hunter Henry to open up. And that's one of those things that's like, it's just it creates an extra yard or two of separation for
Right.
the tight end. Just a little bit. And they put that, it's for anybody who's ever like looked at a football playbook, there's situations where um it's like the wide receiver where they'll be like, do whatever you need to get open. Run this however you need to get open. There's other
Right.
times where it's you have to go this way because it's important for the rest of the stuff that goes on. Look at that Raiders Chiefs game earlier in the year with Devontae Adams running the wrong way, where he goes outside instead of inside or whatever it was, screws up
Correct.
the timing of the whole thing, and they run into each other. This
Yep.
isn't that extreme, but I was glad to see just even a little bit of progress there. And while we're talking about Hunter Henry, I thought he had a nice day too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So I'm happy to see him back.
Yeah.
Bill, what's up? Thanks for coming. Thanks for stopping by, and ASJ as well. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You
You know
know,
who? No, you
go
go.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know who didn't? Kendrick Bourne. I mean, he has a good day last week, and he didn't get a screen. You have offensive line issues. You're playing against a team that likes to blitz, so you should be using screens in a game like this. You
Right.
should be trying to get it to guys in the open field who can create. And you don't throw a
Right.
screen pass to Kendrick Bourne until there's 10 minutes left in the game. What are we doing?
Oh, and then what happened? No, he picked up 15 yards on it. So shockingly, everyone was shocked
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah. And I will say, I think
So
Bourne showed a
frustrating.
little bit of why he has not been on the field that much because he false started on like his second or third snap a day or whatever that was. Like they
Right.
finally put him out there and a false start immediately.
Yeah.
So
It is
I get
hard
that.
though. It's hard when he's not out there a ton. And you can't get into a rhythm, and you can't. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
So I
just
think he's a guy who's going to make mistakes. And you kind of just have to live with it. I'd
right.
rather have his mistakes than Aguilar's right now.
I agree. And I will say, Mac. So Mac missed. Was it Aguilar deep? Did he miss Aguilar deep and Taekwon deep? Did he miss them both deep?
I think
I think
so, yes.
he definitely missed Aguilar deep.
Yeah.
He might have missed Taekwon
Yeah.
deep as well. My thing is this, and people are complaining about it at the game. And my thing is very simple. You're not going to be perfect on those deep throws. You're just not. It's not going to happen unless you practice it consistently. It's not going to be perfect. But additionally, if you only take 3 a game, like, what do you want? It's
There's going to be games where you miss all 3, games where you hit all 3.
Exactly. And so that's the stuff for me where, like, is Tom Brady missing those? No, but Tom Brady has been playing football since before Mac Jones was alive. He knows what the hell he's doing. Like, he's practiced that 1 billion times. Mac's getting there. It's just not. It's not all the way there yet, and that's okay. I thought Mac played well today.
Well, I think the biggest issue with this team is because they can't execute on offense consistently enough to get 15-yard plays when they want them.
Right.
Then that changes. It cascades down the rest of the play calling. So you can take 5, 7, 9 deep shots in a game if you want. If you know, oh, we just did that on 1st and 10, and we're in 2nd and 10, we're still going to get this first down anyway.
Right.
We feel good about it. Well,
Exactly.
at this team, the second they get to 2nd and 10, you're panicking.
Yep. Very true. Very true. And that's the hard part, right? You get to 2nd and 10, and you're running up the middle for 2 yards, and then you're like, well, now it's 3rd and 8, and we're definitely not going to pick it up. It's just like, it's so frustrating. So
exactly.
But I will say, I just thought they opened it up a little bit more today. I thought they let Mac throw it a little bit more. He was really dealing in the first half. I thought they got away from it a little bit. But like, he made some really nice throws. His throw to Myers into triple coverage there was one of his best throws all year. I think the last 8 games, he has 8 touchdowns and 1 interception. Like, I don't know. What else do you want? Like, he's not turning the ball over, and he's throwing touchdown passes. It's not perfect. He's not, he's not winning MVP or anything like that, but like, it's looked pretty good. So, like, what else do you want?
Yeah, they're asking Mac to be a point guard back there basically right now and keep it simple, and he's good at that. That's one of his strengths, and I think he's played well when they ask him to do that. It's the questions come from if he can do more than that, if he can level it up. But that he's always been good at. I was glad to see them play into that. I thought they did that better than they did the first time against Miami.
Yeah,
I liked that they got Tyquan Thornton involved. They wanted to use him. They got plays to him. He had the best receiving day of anybody out there. He got another touchdown and probably could have had even more big plays had they gone to him a little bit more. So I was pretty happy with that. I thought the play calling was mostly decent too. That first drive was fantastic. That was amazing to watch. I would have liked to see more of that. And I don't know. I look at that last 4th down where they went for it.
Yeah.
And that to me sums up so much about this team this year, in that they finally did what we've all been asking for all year long. What if we said, go for it on 4th down? Use pre-snap motion. Get it to your explosive players in space. And they do it. They run Tyquan Thornton on a motion to get him underneath for a fourth down, and
He's
the
wide open.
line blows it. The line
Right.
blows it.
Yeah. And he was
And
wide open.
that's
He was
yeah.
wide
And
open.
that's the issue right now is
Right.
this is why if you wonder why like they don't go for it on fourth down in Green Bay, it's because what we just saw is probably what's been going on in practice when they try to run
Right.
this stuff all season. No wonder they don't have faith in it. If that's what it's going to look like, I'd rather take a chance with a Marcus Jones return one of these times than
Right.
with a play like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it's just it makes it so difficult, and it's so frustrating to not have that consistency. And, that was on Wenu that
Which is
got
on the
beat.
coaches. That's on all the coaches, and it starts with Bill.
Right. Right. But, the players also have to execute. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's on Wenu. That's on Wenu, one of your better players. And so, it's tough. It's just,
and and you look at the Kendrick Bourne stuff. We can blame Matt Patricia all we want for that. Does anybody think that a personnel decision like that happens all season long is being determined by anybody other than Bill Belichick when he's having a bigger hand in this? Like if it is Matt Patricia has a personal beef with Kendrick Bourne and Bill is just knows and is letting it happen, that's like it's just no way.
Worse.
Yeah, like that is. We're not going to fire Bill Belichick here, but that's the territory of Kraft has to have a real talk with him about whatever is going on here.
Right.
I think what's more likely is that Kendrick Bourne is a really inconsistent player who has been making the same mistakes in practice as everybody else, and he's been doing a little bit more of it. So he's the guy down the depth chart. And they want to develop Tyquan, and Parker's a guy who fills a role for them in their offense. So he's going to see the field. And Myers is probably their best all-around receiver. And all of a sudden it's, all right, well, it's Bourne and Aguilar for playing time. And I don't think Aguilar's better, but I get why somebody would think he's better.
Yeah.
I think he does more things. He doesn't do them well. He makes mistakes, but he does more.
Yeah, I agree. And he gives you that deep threat that Bourne doesn't necessarily give you. I just think Mac is so comfortable throwing to Bourne. You know what I mean? That's the thing for me. So
and I it's one of the things I understand why they're making the decision. I just think they're evaluating it wrong. And obviously I'm on the outside looking in here.
No, of course, but still.
But I would, because I'd play Bourne more. Even if he is the fourth or fifth receiver on the depth chart, you can rotate it more. You can you can give him every other series. You can get packages where he's the one out there. You can call plays for him. You can say, we need a drive starter. All right, screen to Kendrick Bourne. And you're going to come out on the next play because we're not using you on the next one. But we want you for that one.
Yeah.
And they're just not really doing that.
No, it's true. It's a good point. So we'll see. Yeah. Well, I'd say maybe that'll increase, but they have one game left. So,
not necessarily
maybe two.
Pat.
You're right.
Maybe
right.
Two, maybe three, maybe four.
Even, who knows? Yes,
maybe
that's
even
true.
5.
Season's not over yet. Defensively, I just think so. First of all, they can't play with the lead. It drives me insane. At the end of the game, they're just like guaranteed going to give up a touchdown at the end. It drives me nuts because they give up, 10 yards on every play. It drives me insane. But they have developed into this team that, they have 7 defensive touchdowns now, 8 non-offensive touchdowns if you count the Marcus Jones punt return, which obviously you should. It's incredible. Kyle Duggar has 3 touchdowns this year. 3.
He and Marcus Jones each have 3 touchdowns. And Marcus has got 1 of each. Duggar's got all 3 on defense. That's insane.
Yeah, which is, it's impressive. And that's one of those things for me that, and this is now the second time in a few weeks now, the Vegas one that he had was awesome. He set Derek Carr up. He saw it coming. He picked it off, ran it back for touchdown. He did the same thing today. He baited Bridgewater into throwing that pass. He knew where the ball was going. He saw it was going to be there. He made it look like the guy was open because as Bridgewater threw it, I'm like, that guy's wide open. And then Duggar came out of nowhere, seemingly, picked it off, and then juked out everyone and just absolutely just I don't know what happened to Bridgewater. I assume it was when he tried to tackle Duggar, but he gave him a stiff arm to the moon.
That was revenge for Chandler Jones right there.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
And that was he almost did it again like 2 plays later too.
Yeah.
Skylar Thompson comes in and hits a guy in an underneath route. Duggar read it the whole way. And if Thompson comes to that a second later, that's another pick 6.
Yep.
Duggar makes his bad plays, but his good plays are unbelievable. Right. I mean, I think he's got 1 more year left on his deal. and then he'll be up. So I think you got to be working on that extension this summer. He's a guy
Well,
you're building around.
and that's the thing. To me, you're not going to have you don't have guys like Devin McCourty, and McCourty's made mistakes too, but McCourty, for the most part, doesn't make mistakes, which is great. And that it's important to have guys like that. But you have to have guys like Duggar. You have to, because that's a guy that, yeah, he's going to take some chances. Yeah, he's going to make a bad play when the Raiders are driving down, and instead of just knocking the ball away, try to pick it off. You don't need that. Like, he's going to make plays like that sometimes. But then when he makes a play like that, you're like, holy crap, now we're back in it
Yeah,
because of him, And so you live with the bad plays because the good plays are so good, right? You don't
mm,
always get that consistent play from every single player. So you need those guys that are, that are game changing type of players. And Duggar has been that type of guy. And so, I just think I agree with you 100%. Like, get him locked up. Do it this
yeah.
offseason, get him locked up.
Yeah. And by the way, the Patriots today passed the 0-1 Patriots for non-offensive touchdowns in a season. That group
That's
had
right.
7 of them for the regular
Right.
season, not
Right.
even the postseason.
Yeah.
So Patriots are up to 8 now this year. I have that
I
right,
mean,
right?
they
Or
have
is it?
8. Yes. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
they have
7
7
defensive.
defensive and then the Marcus. Look, man, the 0-1 Patriots team had something special. Okay. They finished 11-5. They won. They got all the breaks. They won these crazy games. That team scored 3 1, 2, 3 offensive touchdowns in the playoffs. 3
Yeah. And
in
3
3 games.
non-offensive. Yeah.
Right.
They scored 1 touchdown in the first playoff game against the Raiders. That was a Tom Brady run.
Yep.
They scored 3 in the Pittsburgh one, and 1 was a punt return for a touchdown. 1 was a field goal blocked, returned for a touchdown.
Yep.
And then 2 touchdowns in the
Yeah.
Super Bowl, and one
One,
was a
by the
time
way,
off.
was Drew Bledsoe to David Patton. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that
you
was
know,
the touchdowns that year where there was 1 Tom Brady passing touchdown, 1 Drew Bledsoe passing touchdown, and 1 Tom Brady rushing touchdown. That was
right.
the offensive output in the
Yeah.
0-1 thing. And that's the thing. You look at the games coming up. Realistically, anything that happens here, any paths for the Patriots, it's going to involve beating Buffalo first.
Yep.
There's ways for them to get in without beating Buffalo, which we can talk about. But you got to beat Buffalo.
Yep.
After that, you'd probably be playing Cincinnati. And if you were to get through them, you're going to play Kansas City.
Right.
3 elite quarterbacks in a row. If you're going to beat those, well, you'd want to have a defense like what the Patriots have. If you want to play with teams like that, you want a defense that can score points. Josh Allen will take chances. Burrow will take chances. Mahomes
Right.
will take chances. There's going to be opportunities there in all likelihood if they can jump on them. I think this defense is, when healthy, better than the defense we saw last year. And I want to talk about some other stuff from today's game before we look forward, but they didn't have Christian Barmore when they played Buffalo the last time, and he looked really good today. And an interior presence in a game like this. Also, Mac Wilson has been essentially erased from the team since he couldn't push Josh Allen out of bounds or tackle him on that touchdown.
Yeah.
Haven't seen him since. He might be in Siberia somewhere. So things have changed there. Patriots offensive line is also healthier, and if the rest of the team gets a little bit healthier this week, hopefully some of these concussions aren't as bad. And some of these guys are all right. Like, this is, you never know what's going to happen. You got a defense that can score like that. That can change a lot in a game. That can cause 14-point swings. As a Michigan fan, I can tell you right now how much it hurts when you go against a defense that can score points.
Yeah, right. And honestly, it just comes down to, if you're looking at it from the outside, I mean, look, the chances of the Patriots making a realistic run is minuscule. However, when you have a defense like they have, where they are opportunistic, where they don't just force turnovers, they turn those into points. That changes things, And I think, the big one for me is, like, you mentioned Barmore. I thought Barmore had a great game today. He had a bunch of pressures. The Bridgewater touchdown to Mostert, he was all over him, and he just couldn't wrap him up before he got rid of it, and he just really shovel passed it to him. But he had a sack. He had another one where Carl Davis just had a wicked swim move, and got right in there.
Carl Davis,
and that was a hell of a play by Carl Davis. And then, and Barmore kept him in. Right, he tried to escape, and Barmore kept him in, and Davis ends up getting the sack. But That's the stuff to me that I just, man, like watching that team, I'm just thinking like we have a shot. You have a chance
Yeah.
to play with anybody. When you have that type of talent on the defensive side of the football, you have an opportunity to play with anyone. Now, that doesn't mean you can beat anyone, but you have a chance to beat anyone. And, okay, maybe you lose, maybe you don't. Who knows, right? But I think that the offense has been playing better. Not good, but they've been playing better than they were. They're not turning the ball over as much as they were. That's good, right?
And
And the
they're
defense has been playing well. And so who knows?
and I mean, look at the Cincinnati game. Quite frankly, Patriots got outplayed against the Bengals and it wasn't that close for most of the game.
Right.
But a defensive score gave them a chance. They have a weird batted pass touchdown because it's football and weird
Right.
things happen. And you get
Yep.
into the end zone, and the next thing you know, you're a remind like they don't fumble that. There's a good chance they come away from that game with a win.
Right.
So, before we stray too far from this, though, because we were talking about Kyle Duggar and the safety situation,
Yeah.
you got to lock him up because this might be it for Devin McCourty and Matthew Slater, who may have both just played their last home games in New England, which is wild to think about. Those
Yeah.
are, to me, two of the mainstays of the second half of the Patriots dynasty. And the fact that we're getting so far into this, like, not only is it, oh, Tom Brady's gone and Richard Seymour is not there anymore, and all those, Deion Branch is gone. It's not that anymore. It's Edelman's been retired now, and could be McCourty and Slater and all those
Right.
guys. And it's just time flies.
It sure does. It sure does. And and they both had kind of not great days. McCourty was fine, but like that dropped
That
interception.
drop.
It was just what made it worse is that he tripped over himself as he was. It's just like, oh god, dude, like what was that? It wasn't an easy play. It was almost like catching a punt. But like he's got to make that play. And then
Yeah.
Slater had 2 times where the ball was inside the 10-yard line. One of them I got. One of them I understood because the ball popped up in the air and he couldn't get there before it hit the ground again. So you really have to wait for it to hit the ground again, because if you dive at it and it bounces back towards you, you're going to knock it into the end zone. But it took a short hop into the end zone. There's nothing they could do about it. The other one, the ball's kind of bouncing. He has a chance at it and he just missed. He kind of missed it. It was a tough play, but you'd like to see him make that play. I feel like the old Matthew Slater makes that play, or the young Matthew Slater maybe makes that play. But, it's one of those things for me that, like, those two guys, you talk about what it means to be a Patriots player, right? And I still remember 2011 when McCourty was going through all the crap that he was going through, and was playing terrible, basically.
Mhm.
And everyone said, this guy sucks and this and that. And, they finish a game and they come into the locker room and Belichick, gives him a hug and he's like, you can play for me any day. Because that's the type of player that he is, not just on the field, but in the locker room as well. He is that's the guy they're looking for. Matthew Slater's unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen a guy, I guess, handle himself and be the way that Matthew Slater is. He's an unbelievable guy.
He needs to be a Hall of Famer, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
There is not a player who I think has been as dedicated to their craft when it comes to it being some kind of a niche in sports as what Matthew Slater does.
Right.
Like he basically he didn't create his own position, but he doesn't need a coach. Like he is essentially the coach of that unit in a lot of ways. When it's training camp, he goes on the side and, like, where sometimes special teamers are going to be, all right, well, we're going to go work with the offense now because I'm technically a receiver. Slater's just, no, I'm going to go work on dummies for 45 minutes straight with release packages of how I can get off the line of scrimmage as a gunner. Like, it's absurd. And he has guys following him there, too. I don't know if he'd be a coach. Part of me doubts he ever would. I feel like once he leaves football, he might be done with football.
I think so, too, yeah.
Which I credit to him. If that's, like, whatever works for him. He can do whatever he wants, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But he's just awesome. And Devin McCourty, awesome human being. He and his brother both. I'm sure if he wants a career in the media after this, he'll have it. I can't see a guy like him going into coaching either. I think he's made a lot of money in this day.
And it's too much. It's too much of a, like, and I remember they asked Vince about, coaching, and Vince was like, what are you, nuts? I would never do that. Like, they work way more than the players do. He's like, there's no shot.
For less money.
Right. For a lot less money. So that's, but but I just think both those guys, consummate Patriots. When you think about who a Patriot is and what a Patriot is, those two guys are what come to mind. And so losing both of them in the same offseason would be a tough blow. Now you
Yeah,
have
to the
Brandon
culture
Schooler,
especially.
and that's the big thing. That's the on-field play is one thing, but to lose the culture of those two guys in the same offseason would be tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I do wonder if we'd see jersey retirements for one or both of them.
Highly unlikely. Highly.
I
I
could
shouldn't say that.
see it. I could see it from McCourty.
Yeah, maybe.
He's been in New England for a while, and I will say they're both going to get a red jacket.
I mean, Slater's been in New England for longer than McCourty has. Slater got drafted in 08. McCourty drafted in 2010, right? So, but they're 100%. They're both going to get a red jacket, and I think you can make an argument for both of them making the Hall of Fame. I think McCourty was a Pro Bowl level safety for 10 years, and won 3
Led
Super
some
Bowls.
truly elite defenses in there and made great plays, and I don't know if he's going to be a Pro Bowler. I'd love to see him in there. I think he's one of the best safeties of the last decade. I think the issue is that it's not a lot of safeties that make it in, and he played in an era of some really, really good safeties, and that's going to make it. That's going to make it tough for him because he had a tough time getting some of the awards because it's like, he probably wasn't as good as like an Earl Thomas in his prime, or an Eric Berry in his prime, or Eric Weddle in his prime, but he brought like 90 to 95% of that every single year, and was like kind of always like the third or fourth best safety in the league, it felt like.
Right. And part of the problem is that he just doesn't have the counting numbers. He's only been to 2 Pro Bowls. He was a 3-time second team All-Pro. He, only finished his career with 3 sacks, 34 interceptions, but he just doesn't have the numbers that some of these other guys have,
And those 2 Pro Bowls, one of those was as a corner in 2010, right?
Right. Yeah.
He only has one Pro Bowl as a safety, which is ridiculous. How did we let that happen? This guy is much better than that.
The fact that he makes a second team All-Pro as a safety in 2013 and doesn't get Pro Bowl nod is ridiculous, So it's just it's just one of those things, But again, he doesn't have the counting numbers.
He might be first team Hall of Very Good.
Right. I agree.
Which is unfortunate. And he's not the only member of Patriots defense that's going to end up there.
That is correct.
A lot of guys who fall in that category, unfortunately.
That is correct. Yeah, unfortunately. So, all right, let's get into let's talk about next week, because I think that it's fascinating to take a look at this. So the standings are an absolute mess. The standings are complete.
Yeah, we were just, by the way, we were trying to work this out before the show. The reason we didn't come on as early as we did is we spent about 15 minutes trying to figure out what the schedule is going to look like next week and what the NFL is going to do.
I mean, it's just, and honestly, you said it before, like, I don't want to be the guy that has to make the decision, because I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do. Nope. No clue. Shit. And so now the Steelers and Ravens game, right now, the Steelers just kicked the field goal. They're down 13-9. So it's close. If the Steelers lose tonight, they drop to 7-9, and I believe they're out. I'm pretty sure they're out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I can. Okay. Yeah, the Steelers are out with a loss.
Right.
That is for sure. The Raiders already out with their. Yeah. So Steelers with any loss are out. Jets got eliminated today. Raiders got eliminated today with their losses.
Right. So here's who you have. You have the Jaguars, who are 8-8, the Titans, who are 7-9. They play next week. That is to decide the AFC South. However, one of those teams, well, the Titans lose, they're out. But if the Jaguars lose, I believe they have a chance to get in if everyone else loses and they finish 8-9. I believe, although I might be wrong with that. Is that right?
I think if the Jaguars lose and the Patriots lose and the Dolphins lose and the Steelers lose at least once, the Jaguars would get in. Let me run that simulation real quick just to confirm that.
Okay. All right. The Patriots have the clearest path. Win and they're in. They're the only team in the AFC that just has to win and they get in. Everyone else needs something else. Okay.
Yeah. So if what do you call it? Yeah, if the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Steelers all have losses here, then actually, if that all happens, then the Jaguars clinch a playoff spot. Does not matter what happens. That actually throws a whole wrench into the scheduling thing we were talking about, because I think Jags Titans is going to end up being the Sunday night game, but there's a chance we get to that game with the Jaguars already having a spot in the playoffs.
Right. Right. And if that's the
Which
case, then it doesn't matter. Not that it
Well,
doesn't
it
matter. I
does.
mean, obviously it
They can
does. But
knock out
like,
the Titans,
right.
and then it matters a lot to the Patriots in that
Correct.
situation. Because if everybody else loses and the Jaguars win, Patriots are in
The
at 8 and
Patriots win.
9.
Right.
And I'm obviously for the Jaguars that matters a lot too, because the difference between being a 7 seed and going to Cincinnati and being the 4 seed there with a win and hosting a team is pretty big.
Correct. Correct. And so that's really where we're at right now. The Bills are playing tomorrow night against the Bengals. If the Bills beat the Bengals, they'll be 13-3, tied with the Chiefs, and then it's a 2-man race for the number 1 seed. I believe. Who has the number 1 seed if the Bills win tomorrow?
If the Bills win tomorrow, let me do this quick. I'm using 538's thing right now just for the playoff odds.
So if they both finish, let's just say they both finish 14-3. I think it's the Chiefs, is it not?
If the Bills win out, they have the 1 seed.
They have the 1 seed. Okay. All right. So then there you go.
Because they have the tiebreaker over Kansas City.
Oh, because they beat Kansas City earlier. Did they beat Kansas City?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there you go. Okay.
So this is where everything gets super convoluted, because the Bills beat the Chiefs, the Bengals beat the Chiefs, and the Bills and the Bengals play each other, but the Chiefs basically have not lost outside of those 2 games, while the Bills and the Bengals have both had a couple losses in there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's conceivable the Bills could drop to the 3 seed if they lose tomorrow night against the Bengals. So it's a whole.
I'd say even likely, I'd go as far to say, because the Bills would be the 3 seed in that situation, no matter what would happen on Sunday. I think
basically if the Bengals lost the next week.
Yes, exactly.
Obviously.
Then it's the Bengals would get Baltimore home, a Baltimore team that's very injured right now. We'll have to see if Lamar Jackson even plays. And the other game is Kansas City at Las Vegas, and I don't think Kansas City's losing that one. So with that happening, it basically the Bills are almost certainly a 3 seed. And in a situation where the Patriots make the playoffs and the Bills lose to the Bengals, the Bills would be the 3 seed, and the Patriots would likely be playing the Bengals as the 2.
Right. And so, so we'll see what happens, but there's a whole mess. And so next weekend's games, no one's decided yet. There's 2 games on Saturday. There's a 4:30 game and a 8 o'clock game, 7:30, 8. I think it's an 8 o'clock game on Saturday. And then there's a full slate of games on Sunday. No game on Monday night. There's no Monday night game. There's no Thursday night game the last week of the season. So no Thursday night, no Monday night, 2 games on Saturday, and then a full slate on Sunday. I don't know what the hell they're going to do, because the problem is that you say, okay, well, the Bills-Patriots game doesn't really – oh, no, wait, it does matter. Well, the Dolphins-Jets games – no, that game matters too. Okay, well, the Chiefs-Raiders – no, that game kind of matters too. Like the Bengals-Ravens, all of them matter. The Jaguars-Titans, they all matter. Like
and they're all connected. So you yeah.
And then you flip over to the NFC, and it's even more convoluted in the NFC because you got the Eagles, Giants, you got the Cowboys and the Commanders. The Cowboys have a chance to get to the 1 seed. Maybe the Eagles could be the 1 seed. The 49ers could theoretically get to the 1 seed, possibly, right? Like, and so now you start sitting there and saying, like, okay, well, now who's the Vikings are, the Packers and Lions are playing, and it's like, who's going to get in there? But the Lions need help, and the Packers, it's like, it's a complete mess. It's a complete mess.
Are there any games next week that have like a fun draft storyline that we can put out there? Like, which, by the way, if Houston loses, they have the number 1 overall pick. They play at Indy.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
Does Indy get the number 1 pick if they lose?
No, it's between Houston and Chicago for the number 1 pick. Which can we talk about for a second right now? The Chicago Bears may have given up a pick as high as the number 33 or number 32, number 33 pick in the draft for Chase Claypool this year.
That's right. They traded their 2nd round pick, right?
Their 2nd round pick, Lord. And the Dolphins forfeited their first. There's only 31 first rounders. So that Bears pick, they're locked into picking in the top 4. So It will be
It's
at worst
unbelievable.
pick 35. They just gave up for Chase Claypool. That is
It's
just
unbelievable.
that's mind-boggling to me.
Also, everyone out there should be thanking Tom Brady once again. Tom Brady, with his win, the Bucks clinched the NFC South, but also knocked the Panthers down to 6-10, which likely gives them a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Of course, the Patriots have the Panthers' third round pick. And so, what's interesting about that is that if the Panthers had won this weekend, they would have still had a shot at the NFC South crown. Uh, they're playing the Saints next week. They would have a shot at the NFC South crown if they beat the Saints.
Mhm.
Now they're out of the playoff contention. They're playing the Saints next weekend. It's likely that they lose, and if they do, now they finish 6-11, and they're essentially guaranteed a top 10 pick. I believe right now there's 9 teams. This is how crazy the league is. There's 9 teams with under 7 wins right now. 9. It means all the other teams have 7 wins. And right now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it's going to be 13. There's 13 teams, regardless of what happens in the Steelers game. There's 13 teams that are either 7-9 or 8-8. 13. And so it's like it's insane. There's just a huge cluster in the middle of all these like weird, crappy, but like not so crappy teams right in the middle that just keep beating each other but can't beat anyone good. It's ridiculous.
And here's the thing: at least one of these teams is winning a playoff game. It's
Right.
gonna happen.
Right.
That's just how this whole thing works.
Yeah.
And because football is a weird, weird sport, and it's all situationally dependent, and one play can change everything, and teams trend in other directions. I think the Packers are a much better team right now than they were earlier in the season. They're a team that if they get in. I mean, there's a shot. That Packers Vikings game we just saw, we get again in the wild card round.
Right.
So
Right.
obviously, that's one of those matchups. It's like, all right, I mean, that's a 7 against the 2, but the 7 might be favored. Like that's where
Yes.
we're at. 5 versus 4 in the NFC. I know the Bucks aren't going to be favored against whoever they're playing, but if they play Dallas, they beat Dallas earlier this year. They beat them week 1. It's a very different Tampa team now, but we've already
Right.
seen this is a Tampa team that can beat Dallas. Whatever ends up happening in the AFC, who's the 5 seed going to be in the AFC?
Uh
Is
the
it?
f-
It's going to be AFC North loser, right?
yes, I believe.
So
Yes. So the
yeah, so
Bengals or
it'd
the
be.
Ravens. But the Ravens, if they don't have Lamar, like
You tell me, like Jacksonville can beat
when
Baltimore?
it could be the
Absolutely,
Chargers. Could be the Chargers too.
it can be. Okay, Jacksonville crushed them earlier this year,
Yeah.
so I mean that can absolutely happen. Yeah, that's we're looking at a possibility of 3 matchups here for the 7-2 or the 5-4, where the kind of projected underdog, by popular opinion, beat the other team earlier this season.
Right.
And there's a world where the Patriots get in as the 7 because they beat the Bills and face the Bills again. So you might have a situation where kind of all 4 of these matchups, people are saying, how did they get in? We don't like this team. All 4 of those teams may have a win against the team that they're playing.
Right. Right. Which is crazy. And that's some of the stuff for me that I'm like, it just blows your mind. And like Tampa, and I think more so Green Bay. So Green Bay now they win and they're in. They play in Detroit. Obviously, everyone wants to see Detroit make the playoffs. Like it's Detroit. It'd be amazing if Detroit made the playoffs. Maybe
And
they
it's
make
going
the
to be even
playoffs.
crazier to see them make the playoffs, and then that'll make the story better when they sign Tom Brady for the
That's a great
offseason.
point. That's a good point. So if they don't make the playoffs, it could be even better for them. They get a better draft pick this year, and then stock up with Tom Brady next year. But if the Packers get in, their defense is good. They have a good defense. And they have a defense similar to the Patriots where they don't just make plays, they turn those plays into points. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if they get in and they're like the 7 seed, I don't know. Like, who knows? Now, I mean, I know that the Niners could be the 2 seed. If the Niners are 2 seed, I don't think they're going to beat the Niners. But they could definitely beat the Vikings. They just killed the Vikings, and
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Vikings again.
and don't I mean if they play the Niners here, let's
Right.
not forget this is a Niners team that just almost lost to Jared Stidham and the Raiders today.
Right.
You're
Right.
you're telling me that Aaron Rodgers can't beat that team?
Yep.
Is it likely? Probably not. But
I mean, what's crazy is that two quarterbacks, by the way, a little shout out to Spags here. Two quarterbacks this year have thrown for 3 touchdowns or more against the San Francisco 49ers. That would be Patrick Mahomes and Jarrett Stidham. Just outrageous.
Balling today. He was balling
So
today.
he was. He
I
was.
did. I didn't get to see a lot of that game. I'll have to go back and rewatch some of
It
the highlights.
ended.
But
It
that's
ended
exciting.
poorly, of course. But Devontae Adams was on another level. Darren Waller was balling out finally. Like, it's just it's all that stuff where it's like fantasy wise. I'm like, God damn it. I bought into Darren Waller so hard this year and he got hurt and just missed the entire season. And the last few games he's been good. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, my team already
that
sucks.
puts them in a tough spot this offseason because he does not have a great contract right now. I'm not sure what they're going to end up doing with that.
But again, it's reliability. It's the fact that he's just not reliable. He's always hurt. He can't stay healthy. And so, like, to me, I'd try to move on from him if I could. As they got to move on from Derek Carr. So
by the way, when we're talking about all these situations, so the Patriots win and they're in. They can lose and still get in here, and it isn't crazy.
Right.
So based on what would need to happen right now, item number 1, since it's currently going on, Steelers need to lose a game. They're currently losing to Baltimore. They lose that game, they're out of contention here.
Correct.
What that then means is Patriots need a New York Jets win in Miami. And that game is probably going to be at the same time as the Patriots game. So it's going to be all going on at once. And the Jacksonville win in the AFC South, so you don't have to deal with a tiebreaker there with Jacksonville. Or I don't know, that wouldn't even, it would be a tiebreaker there. So that's all it takes. Do you know what happened the first time that the Jets and Dolphins played this year?
The Jets crushed them, didn't they?
40-17.
Yeah,
and not only that, that was with Zach Wilson at quarterback. That was the Zach Wilson-led Jets, and that was the Miami team that had Skylar Thompson playing most of the day.
Right.
We'll see what the quarterback situation looks like next week, but that's a real possibility.
Yep.
And, I mean, if Miami loses that, well, look at this, and it's 1 score holds in that Miami game. Or, sorry, the Pittsburgh game right now.
Right.
Miami continues to free fall, which they really have not looked good, and the Jets have a good defense that I think can really hold them down depending on the quarterback.
Yep.
And the only other thing then is a Jacksonville team beating a Tennessee team that I think we all think Jacksonville's better than Tennessee right now. The way they're playing, I have to think they would be favored that one.
Tannehill says he wants to come back and play, but in all likelihood, it's not going to be Tannehill. It's going to be Webb? Who the hell was the guy that played last week for them? There's
Joshua Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs. That's it. Right.
And that's at Jacksonville. So this is not. Do I want this team backing into the playoffs? That's a whole other question.
Right.
But to me, it almost seems likely that but maybe the most likely outcome here. One of the likely outcomes is that they get in anyway.
I would say
of what happens.
It seems to be the most likely outcome, right? The problem is you're relying on the Jets to win, right? Like
and they have nothing to play for right now. We might, and I wonder if we see Zach Wilson again because of that. They might say we've seen a lot of Mike White. We want to get one more game of Zach Wilson. Now the playoffs are out. See what he looks like.
Right, which is possible. But then again, like if you're the Jets, then you beat the Dolphins and they're out of the playoffs because you beat them. You know what I mean? Like so,
I'll tell you this much: even if it's not going to happen now because Kansas City won today, if there was a scenario where the Bills could have locked up the 1 seed today and rested starters against the Patriots, there's a part of me that questioned if they were even going to do that. Like the Bills hate the Patriots, and they were going to bring their A game in this one. I think no matter what. I think depending on timing here, so if the Bills lose Monday night, and all of these games are at the same time next week, then there's a chance where it's like, oh, it's halftime, and Kansas City is crushing the Raiders, and Cincinnati's up by a little bit on the Ravens. The Bills are going to say, all right, well, if those two teams win, we're locked into the 3 seed no matter what happens. It's halftime. We'll give you guys a break. Like, we're locked into something, and we're not going to send you guys back out there now. I don't think that's likely, given Sean McDermott and how they like to play. I don't think they're ever going to take their foot off the gas against New England, given what happened over the last 2 decades. But I don't think we can entirely rule that out either.
Right. I agree. So it's I think that you're going to have to. I don't know. You're going to have to try to contend with the Bills, and you might get blown out. You absolutely might get blown out. But I don't know. You never know. You never know. And so you at least give yourself a chance. You give yourself a chance.
Yep.
And
And
that's all you can
if
ask
we
for, you know?
and if I told you on what do you call it, January whatever last year after that playoff game in Buffalo that you're gonna have a chance 51 weeks later to go back up to Buffalo, and if you win that game, you're in the playoffs. I think we'd all say, all right, well, let's see, we're up for the challenge, and it's a good Bills defense, and they played well, but I think the biggest issue the Patriots had the first time when they played was that the offensive line couldn't block anything, and that was with Connor McDermott when he was like first playing for the team, and Trent Brown playing through an illness. Both of the McDermott's playing better now.
Yeah.
Trent Brown is no longer sick, so you should get better play from those two. And your biggest problem on defense was you got them into the positions you wanted and you couldn't make the plays. Well, if you do that again, maybe the plays go differently this time. Maybe
Yeah.
Jonathan Jones stays with his receiver in the end zone. Maybe they finish the sack. Maybe Baltimore makes one play. Maybe they get a defensive touchdown. It's not likely, but crazier things
Possible. Right.
have happened and do happen every single year. The
Right.
Saints beat the Eagles today in Philadelphia.
Right.
That's not a good Saints team.
No, it is not. No, it is not. And so that's, so you kind of go back and forth. And that's one of the reasons why it's like, last week was kind of like, whatever. I don't care if they lose, if they win, it doesn't matter. But it's like, I always want them to win. I'm like, what am I going to do? Not root for them? Of course I'm going to root for them to win. And then now they're here and it's like, well, maybe. You never know, So it's, you give yourself a chance. If you're there, you at least give yourself a chance. And I think that that's all you can really ask for. And so, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now the Steelers have the ball with about 4 minutes left to go. Just starting at the 20-yard line, still down 4. So they have a chance to win.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And then by tonight, you could look at it and say, all right, well, if the Steelers lose, now all the Patriots need is, this, and this to happen.
It's a
And if
three.
that
Yeah.
happens, then we're good,
Steelers lose, then it is a 3-team race for that seed.
Right. Exactly.
Patriots, Jaguars, and Dolphins. I will say one other thing here, which I thought was kind of crazy when you look at it. For anybody that knows, Ben Baldwin is the guy who has the expected points added website, which is like all the fancy metrics and stuff. And he divides the teams into tiers so you can look at it. The Patriots are in the 3rd tier right now. They have the 2nd most productive defense in the NFL behind the 49ers.
Look at that.
So this week will be a big test for them. We're going to see how well they actually handle it against Buffalo since they were up and down in the first game. But even with the offense not being great, they're still a borderline top 10 team in the league, according to this. And part of
Right.
that's, what happens in blowouts and all that stuff. But again, for as rough as things have looked for the Patriots this year, like look at the other teams. Half of football is not beating yourself. And this team is beating itself more than you would like to see. Look at the Dolphins right now.
Right.
Look at how much they have beaten themselves this year. The Lions and the Seahawks and the Giants have all had real rough times. I think the Patriots are as good as any of those. Patriots killed the Lions earlier this year. Patriots split with the Dolphins, who are right around where they are in this one. They're well ahead of the team like the Jets. They're not that far off from where like the Bucks are right now.
Right. And I just think, I think as a Patriots fan, if you put yourself in the shoes of, some other fan bases, the Dolphins is a perfect example. The Dolphins were 8-3. They were cruising along. People were talking about them. Oh, there's a new king in the East and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And they've lost 5 in a row. 5 in a row. Now, I know 2 has been hurt for some of it. I know things have happened, but like they're spiraling out of control right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, they came in against a beatable Patriots team. They couldn't really get much going offensively. And I know you have Teddy Bridgewater back there, but like you would like to think that your genius offensive coordinator, head coach could design something up against, they're going to be running zone the whole game. There's going to be guys open in the zone. Just get the ball to your fast guys. It's not complicated. And they refused to do that today. It was bizarre. And so now I'm a Dolphins fan looking at this saying, are you kidding me? We're 8-8 and we might miss the freaking playoffs if we lose to the Jets. Like, what the hell? And it's just like, and do I have any confidence as a Dolphins fan? Do I have any confidence going into that game against the Jets? Zero. I have zero confidence going into that game.
Yeah.
And so like you finish your season on a 6-game losing streak, and now you're like, what the hell? And Tua, I mean, listen, whatever. Troy Aikman retired with three concussions in his career.
Mhm.
Now I know people. Troy Aikman had a hell of a lot more than 3 concussions, okay? But he had 3 documented concussions in his career.
Mhm.
Tua has 3 documented concussions this year. And so like you start to wonder, like, man, is that how much longer can he play? Taking shots like that, and how much longer is it going to be okay for him? That's the hard
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and I hope he's okay. And regardless of what happens with him, I think Miami's probably looking in another direction there, quarterback this offseason.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been that. Tua has great numbers, but I think most of that is beating up on bad teams, plus a couple really good quarters in there. I don't think he's bad. I think he's middle of the road, and I think the Dolphins probably want somebody better if they can get him. So we'll see what Miami ends up doing. Um, but yeah, it's and you can't count the Patriots out right now because
Right.
there is not a coach in maybe in the history of football who's as good as Bill Belichick at developing a single game defensive game plan, which is what the Patriots are going to need a couple of those here. But this is the playoffs start this week for the Patriots. Essentially, this is a playoff game. You got to treat it that way.
Right.
And so you're going to you're going to have a game plan for this one. Their game plan, I think, was mostly good the first time. They're probably going to do a lot of the same and mix things up and try to keep Josh Allen on his toes and do all that. So there's no. I think the defense can keep them in games. I don't think I don't think this is gonna be like last year's game in Buffalo where you just get mollywopped and don't get to stop the whole game. And what that means is your offense is always one big play away. And the offense has not been good this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It just has not been. But an offense can come together for a game. I feel better about an offense coming together for one game or one series or one quarter than I do about a defense doing it.
Correct.
And especially with the talent they have on the offense, because the issue has been communication, not talent for this team.
Well,
And
and
all it
you're
takes
starting
is
to see it.
one good week of practice where things come together, where something clicks, and you execute a game plan.
Right.
Where you do it for 2 drives in a game, your defense gets you a score, and maybe all of a sudden you're up 21-7 in one of these games because you get a couple lucky plays and you execute a couple things really well, better than you have all year, and now you're playing with the lead for 40 minutes and you get to play in the position you want to play and you get to
Right.
rush the passer and look for picks, be opportunistic. And
Yeah.
it's not like
Yeah.
Patriots might lose next week and this is all going to be over. And that's probably the most likely outcome here.
Right.
But we cannot count anything out. Don't give up on this team yet.
Correct. I agree. So it's good. I like it. All right, let's get out of here. We've been here over an hour.
Yeah.
Lots of things to take in. We're not sure if it's going to be Saturday or Sunday. What happened?
Is Pittsburgh down into Baltimore territory here? I think they are. One, the Gamecast is not loading for me, and I'm not going to try to stream a game while we're also doing this. That's not going to work.
2nd and 6 of the Baltimore 18, just under 2 minutes left to go.
Yeah, looks like they just got down. Wow. So we're going to turn to that one. And if you're listening to this in the podcast feed,
yeah, you know what happened.
Morning,
you already know what happened if you're listening
dumb.
to it in podcast. But nevertheless, it's kind of an exciting game. So we'll see what happens. We're not going to stick
Steelers
it
play?
out the
Steelers play the Browns next week, correct?
Steelers play the Browns. Ravens play the Bengals. Right. Yep. So
I need the Steelers to lose this one because I don't know if I can bring myself to root for Deshaun Watson.
And no, and even if you did, like that's not going to happen. So,
and I think what we said this whole time, if the Patriots are good enough to beat the Bills, then they're a good enough team to compete in the playoffs.
Right.
Just do that. Just do that. Because if you lose that game, you're probably not good enough to compete, and I'll take the draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And so, but we'll see. But you never know because even if they lose, there's still an opportunity for them, even if they lose, to get in the playoffs. So, so we will see what happens. All right, let's get out of here so we can watch the end of this game. Yeah, now it's 3rd and 1 at the Baltimore 13. Whew. Now Baltimore's calling timeouts. Like, this is wildness. So we'll see.
Time to
go
turn that on.
Pittsburgh. Yep. So, but anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll be back midweek. Again, we don't know for sure when the game is going to be. I'm assuming the game is going to be on Sunday. Sounds the most likely that it'll be either 1 or 4 on Sunday, but Who knows? Who really knows exactly what it's gonna
And,
be? But
and
seems like Sunday's the most likely.
weather forecast for Buffalo is just 30s and clear.
Oh,
No
that's
funky
nice.
business.
That's nice. Very nice. So I like that a lot. So all right, guys.
I
Well,
would have
thanks.
preferred some snow, to be honest with you, but I'll take it.
Yeah, for them. That's true. Yeah, slow them down a little bit. But that's okay. We'll have Marcus Jones back next week, hopefully, and he'll be able to keep pace with
Get
some of those
healthy.
guys.
Get
So
healthy.
yep, I agree. So and Jalen Mills should be back. Should be back. It was almost back
I hope,
today. Wasn't.
hopefully
Should be back
Devontae
next week.
Parker too. You get
Yeah.
Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones is healthy. You get Jalen Mills back, and you get Devontae Parker. Remember when they went up to Buffalo in the playoffs last year? What people forget is Jalen Mills had COVID and couldn't play in that game, and they had
Right.
Devontae Bosby out there.
Yeah.
So, like, this is
Yeah. Not good. Not
it
good.
should go. That was a big reason why. The reason that Miles Bryant kept getting toasted because they had no other options to put out there.
Right. Right. That's true. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you midweek. Take care, guys.